All right, I'm with the man, the legend, Jacques Newell Taylor. Jacques was one of my first teachers and a long time mentor of mine. He's really shaped my career and helped me navigate a lot of the intricacies within exercise. And he is I would say, an expert on the nervous system, the brain, how it works, and how these things tie into exercise. And more importantly, for this group, how pain might arise and how our mental state, our mind might influence our experience of pain and many other facets within exercise. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing really well, really well. That was a very kind introduction, Eric. I think you've always been like a colleague who has pushed me. Always asked some really questions that made me stop and go, "Huh, what about that?" So I really appreciate it. The growth has been mutual.
Yeah, man, that's been a blessing in my life, but also a curse in some ways.
Mm, tell me about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you will always receive uh, those types of curiosity and questions well, and you don't shun it. So that's awesome. Um, most people don't know about you, so maybe we could start with just like telling a little bit about yourself, how you got into the fitness industry, and how you arrived at your professionalism today.
Sure. Well, I've always had a real interest in the nervous system, and for a long time, I thought I wanted to go into the medical sciences, but um, or be a research scientist. Um, but on the research sciences part, like when I was a teenager, I started working in labs, and eventually, I didn't, I couldn't stomach what you have to do, with the animals as you're working with them. Um, and I thought it was cool that you would discover all these cool things, but then the knowledge just seemed to sit on a shelf someplace, right? So I had a problem with that. And then I didn't really, uh, I don't know, my passion wasn't the medical sciences because there was a level of protocols that you just had to do, right? There was no, you couldn't stop and think about things, right? It was, no, this is what we do, just do it, right? Because if you don't do it this way, you're going to have problems. Um, so then I stumbled into exercise in a way. This was about 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago. And I realized that from my experience of exercise, I always felt better. And the people who I was around who were exercising, we all seemed to feel better, physically, emotionally, in terms of our ability to focus and concentrate. And I really didn't fully appreciate that at the time, but that really drew me in. So my first entry into exercise was, when I was in college, and being a personal trainer. And that just kind of stuck with me. And I enjoyed working with people. Um, and I wanted to have a better understanding of how exercise works. And that was the quest from the time I started, was how is that dumbbell doing something to you on the inside? And I just started questing and asking those questions over and over again of how does this stuff work and how can we make it work better for people?
Yeah, and down the rabbit hole you went.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, what is it about like guiding people within their exercise that you love so much that makes you passionate about it?
Mm. Um, it is, in a way, it's just my curiosity, and belief that, and I don't use that term loosely, but like my core belief that if done correctly, exercise can change your life. Because whenever you are training your body, you are inevitably and inextricably training your mind. You can't separate the two, right? So if you're moving your body, you have this opportunity to train your mind, whether you know it or not.
Mhm.
And it's that opportunity to help people move from, I just want to lose some weight, to, wait a minute, in losing this weight, I'd like to feel like I make better decisions. I'd like to feel like I'm a little less fearful I'd like to feel a little more empowered, whatever the case may be, but helping them to see this relationship between what happens with them physically and what also happens in their mind.
Opens up a door for so many more opportunities that might be left behind when you don't think about that.
That's right. That's right. Or also, you'll have people who come in, and I'm sure you can identify with this, and some of our colleagues listening can identify with this. They come in, they have a goal of, they say, I want to boost my self esteem. I'm sick of feeling overweight and weak. And when they're talking to you, they're constantly saying stuff like, I'm so weak. I'm pathetic. I mean, look at you. You're so strong. You have such a nice physique. I mean, God, okay, come on, let's do this. Yeah, just kick my butt. Let's just do another set, right? So here we are. We are literally training that neural circuitry as they are exercising. So instead of, as their bodies are changing, they start to feel better about themselves, they move further into a pattern of neuroses and feeling like they just aren't worthy. And because they're not looking like you, because they will never look like you, because they are
Mhm.
not you, right?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and it's funny too because you can see people changing in a positive way, getting
Hmm.
towards their goals, and still feel that way because
That's
they're
right.
driving that. That makes perfect sense. I think a lot of us can relate to that. So, kind of in light of what you're talking about, if this term is thrown around, mind body, mind muscle connection, I guess what does that mean to you?
To me, it is the doorway to a far more serious conversation, right? This idea that this connection is inseverable, right? People will even they'll talk about this thing, where you go to the gym and you just turn on the TV and you just do your thing, right? And you think that somehow your distraction from the physical work is beneficial. Where depending on what your goals are, you might be doing something that's very counterproductive. Yeah. Um, there are other people that, depending on where they are in their exercise, where you might want to strategically help them to distract themselves from the physical experience, right? But those are two different scenarios. So, um, yeah, I think it's about the specificity of working with each client about what they want from the specific exercise experience.
So, when would you think? Can you create an example of when someone might want to be distracted when they're exercising versus when they should be really dialed in?
Yeah, I'm gonna say the distraction is usually something that is reserved for highly advanced individuals, where they are being paid to, or they have committed for other reasons. They are committed to going beyond what is healthy
Mm,
and into something that is um, certainly going to create some physical dysfunction.
mhm.
At that point, you have to figure out a way of getting all those central governors to leave you alone and let you keep going, right?
Yeah, like David Goggins, you know who he is?
Uh, ultra marathon dude.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
guy who just beats himself into the pavement, but I guess that would be kind of the circumstance you're alluding to, someone who runs like 300
yeah,
miles.
yeah. Or if I have someone who says, "Hey, look, I am going to, I really want to do some sort of special forces thing, and I want to be in great physical shape," and you're like, "Okay, great, dude, that's awesome." The physical shape is one part of it. The other part of it is you are going to have to endure some things that are very uncomfortable. Now, I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to reproduce that stuff. That's not my goal. But I want to, within the confines of this gym, and I can even take them out into the park. I want to see if you can continue to perform in spite of some of the feedback that you're getting from your body.
Right. And then, so I guess in the context of my clients and the people that
Mm,
might be listening to this who might have some issues in their body that they're dealing with, pains, aches, whatnot, and this
yes,
aging process, right? I would
yes,
think the general pop and most people probably aren't in that spectrum that we're discussing.
precisely, precisely, precisely. So for most folks, it is helping them figure out what they need to pay attention to, right? And if you can figure out what you need to pay attention to as you're exercising, then the television becomes um, hmm, not no longer useful, like
Mhm.
tuning out to the thing, right? Um, you actually start to understand that what you choose to place your mind on and how you observe your mind shift its position is going to be really helpful to you in terms of moving towards your goals.
Yeah, you pick up on nuances and tendencies that could be influencing how you perform and
Yep.
progress, and whether
Yep.
you stress out, get anxious, or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those are opportunities to get better.
Right. Right. So what comes to mind is you take someone who, um, when they're working out, you notice that uh, they bail pretty early in a set, and we're not talking about really heavy loads, but they tend to stop the exercise before it really gets challenging.
Mhm.
And you might even have some sort of external measure that lets you know, hey, wait a minute, you stopped way before the physiological changes are happening in the tissues that we need in order to get to the goals that you want, right? But this person is having an experience. They're getting feedback from their body that is telling them, warning, shut it down. So what we need to do sometimes is help that person understand the feedback so they no longer are fearful of it, but they become curious about it, right? Um, the first time people feel that intense tingling in your quadriceps when you're doing a knee extension, right? For some people, that is scary. They're like, "Whoa, something's happening that doesn't feel good," right? You and I, on the other hand, are like, "Oh, here's that thing. We like it. We've learned to like it because we have an appreciation for what it is, for what it might be indicating." Yeah.
Mhm.
So we might need to help that person understand that feedback. Let's be curious about it. It's not letting you know that the tissue is tearing. That is giving you information about the work that is being done in the tissue and some of the metabolic processes that are happening in there that we might need in order for you to get to your goals. And then people are like, oh, okay, well, okay, I'm feeling that thing. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Yeah, I can feel it. It's getting stronger. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I can do this. I can keep going. I can keep that same pace. And so now the sensation is no longer the thing that stops them. You might come up with another measure like when you can no longer keep the same pace, I want you to stop, right? So they got that burning sensation, but they're able to keep the same pace. They keep going through the burning sensation until they start to slow down or do the reflexive thing where they try to speed up, right?
Mhm.
So there are ways to help people place their minds on features of the exercise that help them um, be more skillful and more curious about the sensations that they're getting from their body.
Right. Don't resort to your norm necessarily. Kind of leave opportunities open for different interpretations of what's happening. It sounds like awareness and education is a big part of that for people.
Yes, yes, awareness and education. You're absolutely right. I think of another scenario where someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, look, I've been working out for a long time. And I've had personal trainers before, and we always get me to this spot, and then nothing changes." Right. So you're working with them, and you're going, "Okay, well, here we go," and you start to notice that yeah, they're not, they aren't working as hard as they need to. So then it becomes something where you can actually say to them, "Hey, look, this plateau that you keep settling into might be because you are not giving your body the stimulation that it needs to progress. So let's talk about that." Right. So it
Mhm.
becomes this thing where yes, you're educating them, and you're providing this opportunity to try on something different. Right. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, totally. So, other than maybe not having experience, is kind of a lot of what you're saying. Sounds like maybe it's
Mm.
something new for someone, or maybe they don't have a positive relationship with exercise or things of that nature. Why else do you think people stop before exercises get hard? Like mental state, perception of the challenge. Like what other influences might play a role in their ability to get into those intense sets?
Historical context is
Mm,
is one big one, and what I mean by that is the last time my body felt like this, something bad happened.
mm,
Right. And so there are processes, neural networks that will inhibit the amount of force that specific muscles can produce around specific joints. Right. So if you have this historical context that says the last time we had that sensation in these tissues, something bad happened, your body's going to try to protect that and it will start to decrease the amount of force that you can produce so that you don't go any further.
Mhm.
So if for some reason you believe that that specific exercise is critical to that person's progression, then you have to figure out a way of creating something that to them feels different,
Mhm.
right? For example, um, a very subtle thing like on a leg press, instead of having someone start with their legs at 90 degrees of knee flexion and their hips at 90 degrees of hip flexion, maybe you start it in a little bit more hip flexion and knee flexion, right? And you would say something like, okay, what I want you to do instead of shoving on this plate, what I want you to do is I want you to pretend like your muscles are on a dimmer switch or like a volume knob. You're going to slowly increase the amount of pressure that you're using on this plate until you feel it move about a half an inch. Okay, and then I want you to let it come back down. So they get to ramp up that force and to see, did I push as hard as I can? No, I just pushed like half my force and that thing moved that far. Huh, that
Mhm.
wasn't so bad. So we've gotten around their guard because we created a new opportunity, a new experience for them. And now they have a new opportunity to see what they can do. Then we can pop them back into the old context. And now that the nervous system has a new frame of reference, a new historical context, maybe something different will happen.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I've done that with people, and it's always a shock. In some cases, it's easy, and sometimes it's like, "Whoa, that's so hard." I feel it
That's
everywhere,
right.
but yeah,
That's
so
right.
it's always unique to the individual. And I have a
Hmm.
personal example, like, I stopped doing deadlifts for the longest time because it tweaked my back, and,
Hmm.
I started just introducing it again, coming in it with a different perspective, trying not to be attached to the old experience, but just in the moment, in the present, let me just see how this thing feels and progress it, and it's been going really nicely. But
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, we
That's
all
awesome.
have these instances where we get hurt
Yeah.
and we have some sort of trauma associated with that thing, and it's breaking that neural
Yep.
network that you're describing. Maybe you can just briefly, not getting too into the weeds, but what is a neural network for people that might not
That's
know?
that's a great question. It is a series of areas of the brain that work together to to record, to interpret, and then to come up with a behavior um, about an experience. Right. So you've got information that's coming from every single tissue in your body that's coming back up to the brain, basically reporting on the condition of your body. How's everything doing? Is anything under threat? Is anything about to be hurt or strained in some way? Where do we need to allocate more resources? And based on that information coming back up to your brain, you actually have a feeling about it, right? You might feel invigorated. You might feel defeated. You might feel afraid. You might feel anxious. But these things are real things based on what is happening in your physical body. And then based on that feeling and based on your perception of what you need to do, you come up with some sort of an action. You could push harder. You could quit, right? You could back off on your force. You could do something that is, I'll call it slightly chaotic, meaning do everything to avoid the intended experience. Are you with me? All right.
Yeah,
So your feedback, the feedback from your body gives you some impetus to come up with a solution to the problem.
makes perfect sense. I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of lends to this next question, and maybe we've kind of already covered that, but there
Mm.
might be pieces that you will expand upon, and that is this idea of like the nervous system and its role within our exercise experience and ultimately our results. What kind of role does that nervous system play
Oh
within?
man, this is so deep. This is, I mean, um, well, it is the moderator, right? In other words, it's detecting everything that's going on. It's the instigator, right? It says, hey, based on what's going on, this is what we need to do. And it's also the sustainer. If you want to do this for a long period of time, here are the other things that we're going to need to do, right? It also starts to record these experiences. It says, hey, if this is what's going on, this is our experience of this. So if we have to do this again, this is how we're going to get the body set up and prepared. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So think of this really simple example. When you go from a sitting position to standing up, the blood flow to your legs has to change really quickly, right? Blood pressure has to change pretty quickly. I don't mean in terms of diastolic and systolic, but as much as the allocation of the blood throughout your body has to change very quickly. If your body waited until after you were standing up to make those adjustments, you'd pass out every time. Every time, right? So before you even stand up, your nervous system is anticipating things and setting it up. In the very same way, when you pull into the parking lot of your gym, based on the experience that you've had the last time, your nervous system is starting to get set up, either for, oh boy, here we go. Time to get my butt kicked again. Time for this to hurt again, right? And then now you start to have this a measurable stress response, right? We could draw your blood, and we'd start to see an increase in some of the hormones that are associated with stress. Yeah. So your nervous system is really back there trying to set up this physical plant to be successful at whatever it's about to do. And every aspect of the experience is recorded and informs what you're going to do the next time you come in. Yeah. Your nervous system also sets up protective mechanisms, right? It will, if tissues get too strained, it will set up this process called neurogenic inflammation. In other words, inflammation that is initiated by the nervous system, which can decrease the amount of force that you produce, change your range of motion, in addition to changing your heart rate, respiratory rate. Let's see, what else? Heart rate, blood rate, and also, your stress hormones, right? So all those things your nervous system is right on top of.
And so, as you would say, it all comes down to the nervous system, huh?
And that's my bias. I mean, I'll be honest with you. That is absolutely my bias, right? Someone could argue that it's all about, I don't know, the vascular system or something like that, right? But I like to think of it that it all comes down to the nervous system, because we can trace the contraction of a muscle from the brain to the spinal cord out to the muscle. And then we can see the hormones that are produced by that muscle, contracting muscle, how they affect the brain, right? And the endocrine system and the digestive system. And so we have this big, massive feedback loop where the nervous system just isn't your brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. It becomes this massive system of organs, of glands, of tissues, of connective tissues that work together to allow you to do all the stuff you love to do.
It is quite remarkable. And when you really get into the weeds of the details, it's really profound and crazy how it all connects together, without sounding too like a canned term, but everything's connected. But it's so, but it really is, you know?
Right.
So kind of in line with what you were just talking about, then how does someone's mindset going into a workout potentially affect their performance, maybe in the moment or long term?
Yes. So this idea of a mindset, right? That athletes, I typically think of an athlete when I think of mindset, right? There's this zone I'm trying to get to, there's this pure focus I'm trying to get to, and it feels like it's just one thing, right? I want to do this thing over and over again. I want to have a rigid, set mind. When the more highly successful athletes, entrepreneurs, artists that we talk to, it is not about a mindset. It is about the ability to appreciate where your mind currently is, how you get it to slide over, right? And what you do with your mind where it currently is and when it shifts over. And if you notice when it shifts over, are you able to bring it back? And if you can't, what are you going to do with that? Right? It is. And so instead of looking at it as a mindset, I like to think of it as a mind flow,
Mm.
right? Where you can come in the gym and be just feeling defeated, frustrated, tired, and sore, and leave the gym feeling inspired, flexible, and energized. But that doesn't come from a mindset. That comes from allowing your mind to flow, right? And getting all the barriers of your mind flowing out of the way and being able to appreciate how your mind flows. And then once you find yourself in a spot that is useful, notice how your mind wanders away and see if you can bring it back,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it almost sounds like saying mindset is a disservice because if your mind is set, then you don't have the opportunity to come out of that,
That's
right?
it. That's it.
And it almost sounds exactly like meditation.
Dude, that is it. That is it. And I will not use that word with 95% of my clients
Mhm.
because that they're like, okay, dude, like I live in Maine. I don't live in California where you can talk about meditation, right? But that's what it is. That is exactly what it is. It is paying attention to where your mind is. If it's wandering over there, you're starting to think about, oh, did I no, bring it back to this rep. Bring it back to what you're trying to focus on. And you don't have to chastise yourself about it. Just so, oh, there I am thinking about something else. Come back to the set.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's
But
an
that
important piece right there. Don't chastise because we all, especially meditation, people don't want to do it because they can't do it perfectly. It's like that's not
right.
the point.
Right.
It's not to be perfect,
That's right.
but giving people the space and, well, I guess the permission to not be perfect, but just to try is important to hear.
That's it. That is it. And also to roll with that experience of, boy, today I didn't feel like I had to try that much. And I was able to keep my mind more or less right here. And
Mm,
another day it's going to be like squirrel, right? Over and over again, right? And to allow that to be, that's not a sign of regression, right? It's a sign of being human,
mm.
right? None of us are living in monasteries, you know? So I'm not, right? So
Yeah, right. What?
so
So, sorry. Go ahead.
no, 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 you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess given my demographic, and then the vast majority of people that might listen to this are probably dealing with some sort of physical pain issue of some
Mm,
kind. So
yes.
then, what role does the nervous system play in the experience of pain, whether
Okay.
it's actual material physical problems or just a chronic thing that's maybe sticking around when there is an actually damaged area?
Yes. So um this is always a very tough thing to try to um, tease out. But as soon as you have an injury and you experience pain, your brain does this interesting thing where it starts to rewire stuff, where it starts to anticipate things, just like the whole thing of standing up, right? Anticipating what it's going to have to do in terms of blood flow. It starts to say, "Wait a minute, I know that if shot goes past here, is we're going to be we're going to have trouble."
Hmm.
So as you start to come up here, you will start to feel pain because you have an issue in your shoulder. Now, once that tissue starts to heal, and if you haven't been exploring that range of motion, your nervous system is going to continue to set up that feedback. So you literally might be having pain in that exact same position, even though that tissue has healed.
Hmm.
Okay. So my job isn't to make the assessment of as to whether the tissue is healed or not. I leave that to somebody else. But once they say, no, dude, the tissue is it's a bomber. I don't know. I don't know what your problem is. That's when we can start to get creative about trying to give this person a new experience so that we get past the wiring, the rewiring project that has happened in that shoulder. Right. So it's a two-step process there. Is first getting the information that the structure is indeed sound, Then we have to say, okay, so how do we start to retrain this nervous system to explore that range of motion without prematurely anticipating this is going to hurt?
Yeah, and that kind of lends to what you said earlier, which was setting up novel stimuli, something they may not be used to, that kind of in a
That's
way tricks them into doing the thing that hurts.
that's it. That's it. I like to, I hear what you're saying, Eric, but I like to think of it less as a trick and more of a more of a, because I know what you mean, but some of our colleagues will take that and they'll not in the way that you mean it, right?
Hmm.
They'll take the word trick as in I know better than you, so I trick you, right? As opposed to what we mean by it is no, I just want to provide something that is different enough that you'll try it without recognizing that it's the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good delineation because trick has a negative connotation to it for sure.
Or at least something that can get some folks in trouble, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like magic tricks and fooling people is not exactly what we're we're
right,
talking about, but I
right.
totally hear what you're saying. So then, is it fair to say that if you had a pain and you know the material stuff is healed, uh, is there going to be an influence with your mental states, your emotions in regards to experiencing that pain on a day to day
Yes,
basis?
100%. If I have a client that is who has some sort of positional pain, um, I'm going to do a lot of work with that person around getting them in a mind frame that is, I'll call it relatively neutral, where they simply feel curious. And that won't be available every day. So what's interesting is you know how we all train all we trainers have great interpersonal skills. Boy, we've got the gift of gab, right? We can talk to people about their lives. But here's where it comes in handy. They walk in, hey, how you doing? Doing pretty good. Now, really, how you doing? Yeah, this is that not so great today. Well, is that sticking with you? Yeah, it's really bothering me because it's something I've been trying to work on for the last few weeks. So today might not be the day where we're going to throw them into that position where they have that pain because they already have some they already may be skewed toward the end of the spectrum of protection. Now, if as we continue to work, they're just saying, man, I feel so much better. Every time I come in here within 5 minutes of like just starting to do our work together, I feel so much better. Awesome. Opportunity, right? Now I might be able to say, okay, here's what I want you to do then. I want you to hold on to this thing and we're going to pull in this direction. Okay, now we're going to push down this way. Now I want you to let everything relax, right? So now we're kind of sneaking up on this range of motion that we're trying to get to. But yeah, the mind flow or the inability for the mind to flow is critical in terms of when you decide to make these explorations. Every day is not the same.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a big thing. So, we have all had days where, man, we just feel run down, stressed. It might
Yep,
not be the day to go after some of those sensitive things for
that's
sure.
right. That's right.
There's this weird thing that happens with people I work with, and I'm sure a lot of people who have had material damage. Maybe they have arthritis, maybe they've had like me, cervical fusion. I have other herniations in my neck, things that'll never change. People in my position can be in chronic pain all the time. For me, I'm able to manage it. I don't really experience much at all. I guess what I'm trying to get after, and maybe you could shed light on, is if you do have material damage, things that are not really going to go away, but yet somehow I exercise and it keeps the pain at bay. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So I wonder if you can elaborate on why that might be.
that is really interesting. So sometimes it's a perfect confluence of what your muscles can do. So when you exercise, your muscles can generate just enough tension to position the difference in your structure in such a way that you have no pain. That's one part of it. The other part of it is your brain is malleable. It's malleable, and there are certain aspects of pain that can be eroded, minimalized. just by your confidence. I like that word better than the other one I was going to use. I was going to use the word that starts with a B and ends in E, has an L in the middle, believe.
Oh,
But your confidence, and I'll tell you why I say this, by your confidence that this thing can help you. Okay. I will tell you this interesting thing. There's everybody's heard of a placebo effect, right? And we all go, yeah. That's we all want to run from the placebo effect. I say embrace it because it's one of the strongest things known to humankind, right? It is so potent that if you're trying to put a new pharmaceutical out there, you have to show that what you've got is better than placebo. And it's not just one thing. Placebo, it should be effects with an S. But I want to tell you about this one type of placebo effect. So we know that if you give somebody something like morphine, right, a very powerful opioid, that helps them with their pain. Well, the other thing that they found is that if you tell somebody that I'm giving you something for your pain and you give them the opioid, that it has more of a pain relieving effect than if you don't tell them anything at all. Measurably more potent, okay, by telling them I'm giving you something for your pain than just going, right? That's pretty amazing, right? That your brain, because you believe you're getting something to help you with your pain, actually says, okay, well, let's make the pain go away, right? So when we do that with exercise, if you can actually build the confidence in the relationship that you have with your client, and you can actually say to them, hey, look, I've designed this thing for you, and I believe it is going to help you with your pain. I'm not saying that every time it will, but if you've built the relationship and they've had that experience with you, that you're thoughtful, you're caring, and you're not just reading something off the internet, right? Copying it down and giving it to them, then that might actually be something that becomes helpful to them, right? It may not change a darn thing about their internal structure, but it changes something in the way that their brain processes the feedback from their body. And that is a real thing. Call it placebo if you want, but placebo doesn't mean nothing. Placebo just means it's something within you that's doing it. I'm going to say that again. Placebo doesn't mean nothing. It means that it's something in your body that is doing it.
That is crazy.
Hey, sweetheart.
Daddy, I want
Excuse us.
another snack.
You want another snack? Well, I'll tell you what. I will get you another snack when I get done with this, okay? All right, I'll be done in about 20 minutes, okay?
Well, I can't wait that.
Yes, you can wait that long. You want to say hello to Eric? Say hello to
Hi.
Eric
Hi,
and everybody
Rosie.
else. Yeah. All right, little one. Seriously, I will get you another snack in about 20 minutes, okay? You can wait.
Well, I would like
An apple? We can go in the refrigerator and see if you can find one, okay?
Okay.
All right. Excuse me, folks. I'm single dadding right now, so
She's so cute, man.
thanks, man. Thanks.
Wow,
All right.
she's
So
big.
yeah, it's 3.5. She'll be 4 in in May.
Wow, it's crazy.
Anyway, where were we?
I lost track myself too, but I have another question for you.
Okay.
So, if someone's struggling with a chronic pain that might, for the most part, we can figure out it's muscular in origin. Let's just say we know that. Do you have like maybe 3 things that people can do that on their own that might help them get out of that situation? Maybe start to feel better, move better, maybe get rid of that discomfort.
It really depends on what I call the issues with the tissues. Excuse me, sweetheart. I really have to finish this meeting. Okay. It really depends on what's going on with the tissues, because if you have something, for example, that is a nerve that's not moving very well, right? The solution for that individual is going to be different than if you have connective tissues in the ankle, that are not moving very well, which would be different than if you have connective tissues in the shoulder that are not moving well, right? Because each one of these different tissues have different densities of nociception in terms of, in other words, they have different amounts of fibers within the tissue that are feeding back about giving you information about pain. And all of those tissues have different mechanical characteristics. So what I would need to do to create some relief might be different, right? So my first exploration is to try to get a better understanding of what are the physical challenges. Is something being compressed too much? Is something being is there too much tensile force on something, or is there a metabolic issue? Is the tissue that is being challenged metabolically, I'll call it immature? It just can't keep up, right?
So each
So
one of these circumstances would require a different type of intervention.
Yeah, they really would. They really would. I will say this. I will say this. One of the things that I'm learning to do with my clients more consistently is learn to listen to yourself well enough that you know when something when an exercise is either going to help you or if it's kind of not going to help you. Okay. What I mean by that is when I first meet people, especially people who are suffering with chronic pain, their belief is that more pain is required in order to feel better. Right? So they will tolerate people doing things that feel worse and they know it because they're thinking something's got to give. Maybe it has to get worse to get better. Right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to get people to say, hey, no, that is not feeling better. I should stop. Right? As opposed to let's keep going. And to be able to describe what is that experience that you're having as that pain is coming on. Is it a tingling pain? Is it a burning pain? Is it a pain that radiates? Is it a pain that feels very sharp and focused? Is it a pain that consistently comes at the same part of the range of motion, or does it kind of slide around a little bit? Does it reach out and kind of like grab it kind of a pain? Right? There are all these different things that you want to know about this type of pain, and then we might have some hints about what is triggering the pain.
Got it. So it sounds like maybe a piece of advice from what you just said is if someone wants to resolve an issue and they want to be proactive about fixing it, pay attention to the sensations you're having. And if it doesn't feel right to you, maybe try something different or adjust what you're doing to make it feel better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And as you are looking for people to help you, if you find that they're not listening to you as you're describing the nature of your experience, walk out the door, right? Because that data that you're giving them is critical to help. It should be critical to helping them figure out what's going on. But if they don't want to listen, then that means that they're going to just try to put you in a box. You got sciatica. It's like, no, hold on, wait. Right?
Yeah. That's a common issue that I hear with people come to see me is they've gone through the funnel of many other practitioners, and it is always relatively protocol based. So that's a good piece of advice for sure.
Yeah. And they're not listening. A lot of people just don't listen, so.
Yeah. That is a problem, not just in the fitness industry, but definitely within the fitness industry for sure. I wanted to just touch base real quickly on some of the unique things that you do with your clients, but also you do within the educational program that you offer other professionals like myself. And that is like the real-time data that you collect with some of these devices that are starting to grow within the fitness industry. And some people might even be exposed to some of this stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting just to give a brief overview of some of the things that you do with your clients that are a little bit data-driven, more from an objective standpoint, what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I use is I look at oxygen saturation. So I use these things called MOXIE sensors. The technical term is near infrared spectroscopy. and these little sensors sit right over the muscle that you're interested in. And what they detect is the amount of oxygen in that muscle, and also give you a way of observing the flow of blood into that muscle as well. And that's a really, really cool thing, especially if as you're looking from things to left or right, trying to understand the difference between a an athlete like a football player, or an athlete like a soccer player, or an athlete like a marathoner, or someone who just wants to lose 25 pounds, right? But this kind of data can really help you figure out how hard someone should be working on any given day, and if they're working hard enough, or if their body's response to hard work is the response that you're looking for, right? So that becomes the other thing, is that say you have somebody they're killing themselves, but the response of their body to their by their neuromuscular system is not the one that you want. You won't know that, because at the end of the workout they're dead. I mean, not dead, but they're crushed. They put it all on the table, but it's not, and you have no idea of understanding what's happening on the inside, unless you have something like these SMO2 sensors. The other one that I use a lot is surface electromyography. And these sensors sit on top of the muscles, and they give us information about the activity of the nervous system. And some of the sensors that I have look at the muscle fibers that are under the sensor, and others actually will break it down to the individual motor units of the muscle that's under the sensor, which is pretty cool too. So we can do things like, if we have an athlete who comes in and like, hey, I'm a soccer player, I feel great. You take these measurements of the way their quadriceps and their hamstrings, fire when they're running and when they're doing squats. And then if they should get hurt and they have an injury and they want to know if they're ready to play again, we can say, okay, come on in. Your physical therapist says you're ready to play. Come on. Your strength coach says you're ready to play. Come on in. Let's evaluate how those muscles are firing right now, right, compared to before. And oftentimes we'll see that, yeah, when they do their exercise, it's symmetrical in terms of strength, but there's one or two muscles that are dominant, right? And there's somebody who's, as a result of the injury, is just out to lunch. So if we send that athlete back out there, eventually they're going to tear something up, right? So this is a way that we can, it's a way of helping athletes be smarter about their recovery, and even helping non-athletes be a little bit more confident about their recovery as well.
Yeah, this sounds like I know that most of these things tend to be centered within the athletic community or for pro athletes, because there's so much money behind that. But it almost seems like this would be more of a service for those who, like the common folk, that might have issues developed over their life that they can't seem to get out of without objective information. This could really open the doors to figuring out the resolution and maybe taking out some of the guesswork.
Yeah, it's huge. I'll say that the surface electromyography is pretty darn pricey, and it does take a good chunk of time to do it well. The SMO2, the near infrared spectroscopy, is actually relatively affordable, and it's really easy to use, pretty hard to mess up, but you do need to be educated in order to have, I think, some good insight in terms of interpreting the data. I mean, you could make a mess of it if you just try to kind of make stuff up. But in terms of the use of the sensors, they're really easy. It's fast. It's in real time, so you can be showing your clients while it's happening. It's really, really cool.
What kind of value do you find your clients get when you do this with them? Like your normal folk, like when you're using these Moxie sensors, they see it there, and then they start to associate sensations with these actual real things. Like, does that help them navigate their training a little bit?
It's huge, because they totally get why, like, on the first day, I'm not like crushing them. I'm like, look at what's happening on the inside. This is what we want, and this is what's happening. If we continue to push you right here, we're getting no closer to our goal,
Mm.
and all we're doing is tearing this other stuff up, increasing the likelihood of all this other stuff we don't want.
Mm.
They're like, "Ooh, great, awesome," and then as they see themselves progress, they're like, "This is really cool. I've never hit that part of a workout where I feel incompetent, incapable, and like this sucks.
Mm.
I'm working hard, but and I'm working harder than I ever have. And sometimes we get to failure, but I'm always surprised. It's
Yeah,
because
it's less than they need. They think they need in a lot of cases. Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
it is. It
I'm
is.
definitely gonna be getting one of these sensors soon. I'm actually soon to be getting a bunch of force reading devices from
Oh
Convent.
yeah.
Have you heard
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm excited about that, and then adding this, man, it's gonna be fun. It's
Yeah.
everyone needs to go out to Maine to try these out with Jock.
Come on up. I will probably be running a live session. Um, I'm gonna guess probably next fall would be my guess. Maybe this spring, but probably next fall. We'll break out all this cool equipment. Yeah, I've got a really cool force dynamometer that allows us to like look at the difference in force of a concentric and an eccentric. It'll blow your mind. I promise you. I promise you. It just blows your mind to actually see that this idea that you're stronger on an eccentric than a concentric is kind of like a, well, duh. you know.
And for people that don't know, the concentrics lifting the weight and then eccentric lowering. I know there's a lot of jargon that we threw out in this discussion. I
Yes.
apologize for that. But we both get a little geeky and nerdy about these things.
And if you need the definition for any of those things, feel free to reach out to Eric. And if Eric doesn't know it, feel free to reach out to me. Really, truly, I'm happy to share it with you. I forget about that sometimes. You know.
Yeah, I appreciate the offer for tutoring. You know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you also do virtual consulting with people?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
At the end, I'll re-ask you about where people can find you. But I was kind of interested to just kind of take a little break from what we were doing, maybe get some personal questions in. It'd be kind of
Sure.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a quote that you live by?
No, not a quote as much as I don't know if it's a quote. I'm sure maybe it is a quote, but it's just this idea of be curious. You know, just be curious.
That's a quote by Jacques Newell Taylor.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
What is the what's the theme song to your life?
It doesn't have words though, unfortunately.
Oh, is it like a
Yeah.
jazz song?
Yeah, it's a song called "Moment's Notice."
Is that like you play that on sax?
You could play it on sax. I did. I used to play it on sax. Yeah. It's a song by was known as a song by John Coltrane. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
If you went back to speak to yourself 10 years ago, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
10 years ago. 10 years ago. Ooh, wow. Oh, wow. I would have said, work on buying a building. No joke.
Yeah,
Buy a building.
it's a good investment for sure.
Dude, that's it, you know?
Sets you up.
Yeah.
I'll be taking that advice now.
Do it.
All right, a couple more. If you could go back in time and meet one person, dead or alive, who would you meet?
Hmm. I think it would have to be I think it would be Benjamin Banneker.
I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
Yeah, he was an inventor, astronomer, and I think astronomers are really cool because I'm like, how can you? I want to know how you assure yourself that your interpretation of the way things are moving is right. Like, I mean, they got it right, but it's like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this dude was pretty amazing. He invented a whole lot of stuff and was just super smart. And so I just wonder, like, guys like that, how do you, yeah, how do you have that kind of imagination and then it lines up with physics so well? What is that?
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know who he is?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a funny guy. He's really smart, but really
so
good
smart.
teacher. Yeah,
A fantastic teacher.
he makes everything so easy to understand.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, last one. What's something that you're really fascinated with right now? Doesn't have to be exercise, but it can be.
Something I'm really fascinated with right now. Let me think about this. Oh yeah, well, yeah. So I'm really fascinated with this idea of energy substrates and like really what's the stuff inside of a cell that differentiates the person who can run a marathon, like win a marathon, versus win an 800 meter versus play football. Like, what the heck are the differences in those tissues that allow those people to do those things? And none of them can switch back and forth, right, at the highest levels. So I'm just trying to wrap my brain around like really the differences. And I know people want to go, oh no, it's aerobic anaerobic. That's not true.
Mhm.
That's just not true. It's a lot more. It's more sophisticated than that.
Yeah. Yeah, you
And so
pointed that out in our classes, easily seeing this constant crossover between aerobic and anaerobic metabolism is was really eye opening because it's not how it's
yeah,
described in the literature at all. So
yeah,
that is very confusing, but I'm sure will be a piece of the puzzle that gets expanded on in the next decade and
yeah,
more
for sure,
enlightening for sure. Well,
for
hey,
sure.
Jacques, I really appreciate you taking this time. I know it's tough when you're watching your daughter and all that.
Yeah,
Appreciated her hello too. I haven't seen her, so that was awesome. You know,
cool.
if people want to consult with you or maybe get some advice or tips or maybe a client or even personal trader or anything like that, where can they find more information to connect with you?
They can go to exercisedesignlab.com. That's where you can see a bunch of information, or just email me Jacques at exercisedesignlab.com. And one of these days, I'm going to say the next 2 weeks, I'm going to step back into the Instagram, TikTok arena after a long hiatus. So I'll be there too.
All right, awesome. I'm excited to see what you put out, man.
All right.
All right,
Thank
well,
you,
yeah,
Eric. I really appreciate you reaching out, and like you have really, I don't know, you've really done it. I really appreciate the work that you do, and it's just been a pleasure studying with you over the years.
I appreciate the kind words, man, and many years to come.
You bet.
All right, man. You have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your time with your daughter, and I'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good.
All right, take care, man.